Welcome back to the Hurling Show here on Off the Ball. We're live on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. I'm Shane Stapleton. With me, as always, are the two of the biggest biffos you'd ever find, William O'Callaghan and Michael Verney from Independent.
William!
See, that's like...
I don't have a call that outside the court.
Yeah, that's like last week I said Daniel Sutcliffe instead of Danny. I don't know what happens. Get awfully formal at the start of these things.
Salutations, Shane.
Normally we have a goat of the week, lads, but Wexford against Galway. There's no way you could have a goat, not out in that wind.
No,
that was
the wind was probably the goat of the week.
It was rough enough.
I only watched it I only watched it all last night and this morning and just realised just how bad it was.
But I suppose the closest thing we have to a goat of the week would be my own first cousin, Father Vinny Stapleton.
Yeah. 2
points from wing forward against Thurles Sarsfields in a league game last Saturday evening. There it is, the tweet. Went absolutely nuts, that tweet.
And that makes you so happy.
Cut me up now. I think it went up to 900 odd retweets. And I had 3 different places, 3 different media outlets ring me to get his number. And sure, Father Media Whore himself went on everywhere.
He was on before the county final a couple of years ago, wasn't he? Yeah.
He was, yeah. I did a mini documentary with him. But obviously he substituted himself in the second half.
Did he make mass on time?
He did make mass on time, and I believe he said a right mass as well.
A right mass is a short mass.
No, he played all right. He scored his 2 points, but did he get into the play throughout the game? I don't know. I think a lot of the game passed him by at wing forward. Vinny would be the first to admit it himself. Lark Corbett ran the show at the other end. 38 years of age. Absolutely class. Must have scored 1-3 or 1-4. Thurles won the match. Anyway, we'll go back to Galway against Wexford. 16 points apiece. What did you make of that game?
Obviously Mick rewatched it. I didn't see it because it was the football on Sunday, so I saw the highlights and then watched a bit back in TG Carr's kind of longer highlights on the Monday as well. It seemed obviously first half Wexford had real problems trying to move the ball around with that gale wind firstly. They hit quite a few bad wides in that first half as well. I was listening to Di Regan on the radio on Sunday afternoon and he was laying into them at half time. I went down to get some interviews after the Laois Westmeath game and came back up and Mossy Quinn told me, you won't believe it, Wexford have actually gone ahead, and I thought he was taking the piss.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, you can give out about how Wexford, they're shooting. It was terrible and Leach in and an absolute nightmare, but in that wind I think it's forgivable for most players, but they were playing pretty well. They just weren't getting the scores. And when I think of how much a wind can affect the game, like even your short stick passing, like 20 or 30 yards, if the wind is going hard, it'll actually affect the swing of your hurley.
And even the hand passing wasn't going to hand a lot of the time. It's just, I remember playing a match like that where the keeper threw up the ball and it kind of nearly blew back into his face, like, and he poked it to the 14. Like it wasn't quite that bad, but it was bad. And when you see like the amount of frees, I wouldn't be a big fan of Leach in hitting frees anyway. But
they're overall, Wexford are a nightmare for frees. Even look at, I thought it was absolutely crazy. In the second half, 3 times Mark Fanning had frees from 90, 100 yards, even over at the sideline, and just driving them wide. And
they were really harmless, weren't they?
Yeah.
Really
harmless. You have the benefit of the wind behind you, so start popping the ball up the field, work yourself into scoring positions, and if you do that, you have the wind behind your back, and popping them over the bar should be a lot easier. So I thought they're kind of, between the freeze and doing that stuff, it was self-destruct to some degree.
Yeah, it's just strange they didn't feed Conor McDonagh a bit more. He looked actually lively enough any time he got near the ball, but they didn't poke the ball into him a lot of time.
Yeah, and he only got 1 point because of it. Like, you have to feed these players, and a nice ball out in front of them. You know, obviously you need a bit of variety too with long ball as well.
It's mad to think that Wexford, in a way that Wexford got a draw, that so many things went wrong for them almost, and they still got a draw. But yet, Galway looked like without a plan, without any sort of structure at all. Didn't they?
Very passive.
And still Galway could have won the game. Like, Conor Cooney missed a chance in the first half. I think he dallied a bit long, and I think Shane Rex sort of maybe interrupted what he was doing, but at the same time Shane Rex seemed to hesitate and then put his foot up across him. I thought it was a very weird way of trying to stop a guy. And then was it Jack O'Connor stopped Conor Cooney?
That was brilliant.
Great hook in the second half.
Yeah.
Obviously Cathal Dunbar.
That was the chance, because he was by himself. He was 13 yards out.
It was an unforgivable miss, to be honest.
He completely mishit it, and it just hopped in front of Callanan.
That's 2 games in a row now where Wexford should have been beaten by Dublin, but they had the winning of the game and didn't stop a 21-yard free. They had the winning of this game, having come from behind again. So Davy, from losing positions, should have won both games. I'd say he's frustrated. This notion now, by the way, that all of a sudden Davy gets sent off midway through the second half for coming in and remonstrating with the officials, the idea that somehow affected the game, that actually winds me up to even think that could affect the game.
Surely as a player you don't really even notice.
Well, like, all I think of is the club final in 2018, Cool against Na Piarsaigh. Greg Kennedy, who is getting a lot of notoriety lately for his lovely catch against Kilkenny as a Dublin selector, Greg Kennedy got sent off midway through the game. It was only after the replay game I found out he even got sent off. So the notion that the whole lot of the Wexford team would have rallied behind their manager just because he got sent off is nonsense.
It's an easy narrative.
But you've enough to be worrying about without thinking about, I'm going to do it for him now because he got sent up to the stand when, it's not that unusual for him to be sent up to the stand, I don't think. Maybe that's harsh.
Just didn't Dave Fitzgerald say a couple of years ago he actually thought he had a better view when he was up in the stand the night that they beat Kilkenny.
He was up there for the whole of the first half and maybe just came down at the start.
Yeah, wasn't it Wexford against Kilkenny 2017? He had to go up into that box that they constructed in Wexford Park, and after that he was like, well, this is fine. Actually, lads, which is better so far, Munster or Leinster?
Sure, that's a no-brainer really. Munster has been
but Leinster
better quality games. Leinster probably the more exciting.
Leinster's set up for some finale now.
Unreal, yeah.
It's Galway against Kilkenny, Galway against Dublin against Galway. Galway have to go to Parnell Park. Wexford against Kilkenny. I'll give you an old stat. The average total points per game in Leinster versus Munster. So what would you guess it is?
Total points per game between the two teams. Oh Jesus! In Munster,
we've had some big scores. Like Tipperary alone have
50-ish, 50 I'd say.
50.
What would you say it is in Leinster?
Oh, it must be around 30 probably.
I'd say
that'd be like 15 points each.
It'd be more like 40 probably.
Yeah. So what it is 52.8 points per game in Munster, 46.2 in Leinster.
Oh, I thought it'd be bigger.
Higher than I thought.
It's still a sizable enough difference.
Yeah.
If you think now, there have only been 5 games in Leinster and only 4 in Munster, but they're far more high scoring in general. I think the 2 interviews that Maura Trasa-Nikalic did with the managers after the Galway-Wexford match, it kind of just shows the pressure that these managers are under and what they're feeling right now. We'll start off with the Micheál Donoghue interview with Maura Trasa.
Did you think the referee was a bit severe in terms of how you adjudicated on some challenges and that?
I had a question. But look, in fairness to Johnny, is that from him or is that from higher? Look, I think the debate is going to rage on. Do you know what I mean? I thought, there was some of them were harsh. Look, when you're asking me,
yeah, harsh enough.
Yeah.
Well, it depends what your vision of harsh is. I mean, you could argue if you're protecting player safety. I'm just being devil's advocate here.
That's fine.
You don't agree?
Oh, sure, look, if that's your opinion, that's
It's
fine.
not my opinion. I'm just being. No, I didn't. I said you could be devil's advocate. No managers they're all I'm angry at me today, I'm sorry. But look the officiating, I saw both sets of managers. You're not going to obviously speak for Wexford, but you also looked pretty unhappy as well for a lot of it, especially in the second half.
I did, yeah, but it's highly competitive here, we're under no illusion of the fact that it is we're all competitive by nature and we're going to fight for absolutely every single thing we had
It goes to show as well the value of Joe Canning, doesn't it, when he's not there, that he's just such a leader that you do miss his presence when he's not there.
He does, yeah, but we knew he wasn't going to be here. Do you know what I mean? I said I have huge trust in the group. I've said it 100 times and I keep saying it. Anything that this team has done has been on the collective, not to any individual. Any team would miss a player of his calibre 100%, but we know we don't have him.
It's actually an interesting dynamic that you see in hurling interviews in the last couple of years. You've had Nicky Brennan, who's a former GA president, former manager of Kilkenny, interviewing Brian Cody for Kilkenny Community Radio. And there you have John McIntyre, the former Galway manager, former Tipperary player, interviewing Micheál Donoghue. It's quite an interesting narrative because they know exactly what these guys are going through. Maura Trasa had a few more grenades to roll in with Davy Fitzgerald. Let's hear it.
When you were sent off the sideline, what was said to you?
Listen, that's the second time in a row that we have had a fella taken out off the ball. It happened in the last one here as well. Yet there seems to be one rule for one set of management and another for another. So I'm actually ceding at the officials again. Didn't abuse him. I was making my point quite clearly that our lad was taken out off the ball. They ended up getting a score, and that's not right.
To be devil's advocate, they would say that either it happened off the ball, they didn't see it, or they did the best decision that they saw at the time.
I think that's not the truth. Hold on. Being honest now, you're giving me too many hard questions and I'm not interested in answering that stupid one.
Well, it's not a stupid question. I'm just being devil's advocate. Bye, Davy Swan.
I don't think, was it Al Pacino was in that Devil's Advocate film as well, maybe Keanu Reeves as well. They should make a sequel with Maura Trasa because she loves calling herself the Devil's Advocate.
Yeah. That's the first time I've heard Davy's voice sound like that kind of helium voice that Mario Rosenstock does on Gift Grub. Yeah. That was it. Perfect, right there.
Was it a stupid question?
It's just you kind of have to be so kind of careful in a way. Usually, you kind of massage a manager's ego. You usually ask a couple of, like, without being smart, a couple of very easy recall questions at the start, get them talking and comfortable, and then go in at the hard stuff at the end. Whereas if they cut it off at the end, it's okay. At least you have something got.
So lull them into a false sense of security is what you're saying.
Kind of. I hope I haven't given away my own technique. Yeah.
That's journalism. Journalism 101.
Like, I think it's a legitimate enough question to ask. But maybe the way that was phrased may well have irked Davy, because obviously he's annoyed coming off the pitch anyway because he's been sent off for the second game in a row. His team have narrowly come away from maybe getting the important 2 points and ended up with a point. So therefore he's going to be fairly high tension anyway. And then you're hearing a kind of a devil's advocate question as opposed. And you heard Micheál Donoghue say the same. It's like, well, that's your opinion. And Maura Trassa said, no, I'm just playing devil's advocate. So I think there's kind of an insincerity maybe felt by the manager by the question being asked as well. It's almost trying to provoke a reaction, which is obviously what an interviewer is trying to do anyway.
Davy was spitting fire at the start anyway. Like, it was probably always going to go that way regardless.
Well, Maura Trassa not afraid to ask the hard questions, so fair play there. Do you know, that game a little bit reminded me of the end of the USPGA, Dustin Johnson against Brooks Koepka, where they were both falling over each other to almost lose it, and obviously someone has to win. Koepka was so
Did anyone score in the last 6 minutes? I think the last score was in the 68th minute. I could be wrong. I think it was.
Score, yeah.
Yeah, and like 2 great goal chances within that time, but no one scored. It was exactly that. It just didn't look like either team really wanted to win the game, and it was marked upon on commentary that kind of both teams just didn't want to lose. That was more than any team actually wanting to win.
I think they were first of all, actually, Sean Murphy, that's his, like, I think he scored the equaliser at the end, or he scored one of the very last scores coming up from the back for Wexford. That's 4 points in 2 games for him as well, which is good from the backs. I would have serious question marks over Galway at the moment. You know, they bring in Johnny Glynn, who hasn't hurled this year. They started Joseph Cooney, who basically hasn't really hurled this year, certainly at this level. Their impact inside forwards in 2017 when they won the All-Ireland were Jason Flynn and Niall Burke. Now it's their half-forward line. So I just wonder if they weren't good enough for the All-Ireland team, and I mean, I know you can say impact subs are just as important, but if they weren't starting then, to now be in the crucial half-forward line without Joe Canning. And I would say, whether Joe Canning is playing well or not in the team, he's the safety blanket for everyone around him. And I think other players are shrinking because he's not there, Conor Whelan being the obvious exception. And
in fairness, Canning is a player you would have probably turned to on Sunday when the game started to slip away from them a little bit.
Well, even the freeze.
Yeah. Like, in all likelihood, he's probably going to settle things. He's probably going to get you a score that's going to lift the team at some point. I mean, Micheál said that himself as well. He's like, look, any team would struggle to cope with losing one of the best players in the country. The thing is, remember we were thinking at the end of the league, is this a good thing that at least they know the Joe Canning injury well out from the championship, which means that you can maybe play around a little bit before you come into championship? It's not like they're having to think this out because he picked up an injury after game 1 or game 2, but obviously the puzzle hasn't quite been set just yet, and I think at this stage people are thinking Galway are probably looking quite a bit away when you see how well some of the teams are playing in Munster. It's a long way to get up to that level for Galway.
I suppose only 8 of the All-Ireland teams started against Carlow. A good few more were back then. The last day, Dahi Burke, probably his first hurling game of any note for the year as well. So maybe it'll just take a little bit of time, and I'm being a small bit harsh.
No, I don't know.
I would worry for them.
I don't think you're being harsh at all. Yeah. They look in trouble. Like, and without being smart, from a panel point of view, when you look at like the start of Joseph Cooney, who cannot be back in the fold a month, I'd say, a month, 5 weeks. Johnny Glynn, I'd say if they took 20 puckouts in the second half, 19 went down on top of him, like, and that was literally the only tactic because none of the rest of them were able to win.
Which follows on from last year, where they were just boom ball and there was very little more to what they were doing.
And now they got a good bit of joy out of it because naturally you have a 6'5" lad, and you are going to get a bit of joy, but like, who else is going to win a ball in half forward line? I think they're in a lot of trouble. They don't look to be playing with any confidence anywhere. They don't look comfortable on the ball like they did before. Like, how many balls were over lads' heads and went over for sidelines and things like that? And the free taking thing is a big issue as well. Like, Niall Burke just didn't look comfortable. He didn't look comfortable against Carlow. He didn't look comfortable the other day.
Issues are a factor in all of the things.
I know that too. I know that.
Yeah. Just a quick run through some of the other results. Well, the other result actually was Kerry 121, Westmeath 216 as well. And looking at the Joe McDonagh table at the moment, Laois are top alongside Kerry with 4 points each, Westmeath then with 2, Antrim with 2, Offaly with none.
Kerry on 4.
Kerry are on. Well, that's what.
No, Kerry have only won one. Kerry have only won one game.
Yeah. So Kerry 121, Westmeath 216 as well. That's a massive result.
Big shock, you have to say. Big shock, because I know Kerry are down a lot of bodies. The 5 or 6 big injuries by all accounts, and lads that are going to be missing for the most of it. Very few people would have expected that small crowd up. I don't know if any of you saw as well the incident with the Mayor Forna and Derek McNicholas. When Derek McNicholas was taking a line ball, he was basically waving the flag, and he got sent up to the stand as well. Whether that had the same effect that people are saying that Davy been sent up had, I don't know. But again, like Shane Conway, when he's bottled up, Kerry are in trouble. But when he gets on the ball like he did the other day, they can be a match for anyone at that level.
But Killian Doyle, when he's not scoring for Westmeath, is anyone else doing enough scoring?
I don't think so. I mean, that's become the big problem now, Shane, to be honest. He scored, 112, 113 in the first game against Offaly, and he scored 111 against Kerry on Saturday. I was listening to the game, bizarrely enough, in the airport in Glasgow on the way to Celtic Park. So
you're over to the Pro 14 final.
The Pro 14 final.
The less you say about that, the better. We don't care. We don't know who won here, and we don't care. We don't want to know.
The flight arrived in. I just about got in time to catch the start of the second half. It was level at half-time between Westmeath and Kerry. Apparently very forgettable first half as well. And then the second half was more exciting. It was kind of blow for blow as they went through. But Westmeath seemed to fade out of the game, which they haven't done so far. This is their first defeat of 2019. But as you mentioned, Killian Doyle does all the scoring again the weekend just gone by, and no one else registered more than 2 points on the Westmeath team. And that is a big concern when it comes to Westmeath for the summer, because I think last year they were sharing the scores around an awful lot better. Now, Killian Doyle wasn't on the freeze all of last summer either, so you have to take that into account as well. But they're going to need 1 or 2 other forwards to step up, because it's funny, if Westmeath had beaten Kerry last weekend, the route to the final looked very smooth. But now they have to go and play Antrim away and Laois away in the last 2 games. And now you start to wonder, it's a flip of a coin whether they're actually going to go to the final or not.
It throws the whole thing open, it really does. We actually have a chance of getting through to the final now if results went our way. If Laois
impartiality there.
The score difference is the big problem for Offaly now.
That's very tight. Like Laois on 4, 3 teams on 2, and then your lads Offaly on none.
Yeah, because obviously Offaly can only get to 4 points now at this stage, and that would mean a couple of wins, beat Antrim this Saturday.
Laois would beat Westmeath.
And then Offaly would have to win their last game in Tralee against Kerry as well. Then in all likelihood, you're going to have teams ending up on 4 points.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at a scoring different situation. But it is funny, Offaly, who we totally wrote off last week, and I think with good reason. Now if they win their last 2 games, and maybe if they do run a score against somebody, you start to wonder, because it does feel wide open. Antrim as well. Like if Antrim were to get a result this weekend against Offaly, they finish off, I think, at home against Westmeath is their last game. They're better in Dunloyd than they are in the road. That could mean Antrim get to the points to get to second place.
And it's not just the promotion. For the people who aren't paying attention to the Joe McDonagh, that are just sticking to the Liam McCarthy teams as well, 2 of these sides are going to get to the All-Ireland preliminary quarterfinals as well. So the fact that they're having really strong, tight games against each other is good. Offaly against Antrim this weekend is huge. Joachim Kelly did an interview with Midlands Radio with Joe Troy after being announced as the new manager. So this was after training last Sunday. It's interesting what he had to say.
They threw in the towel the last few weeks, and that doesn't work with me throwing in the towel, so that's what we've got to try and resurrect. And
is that something you're looking for, just more the honesty and the pride of effort, that no one is going to blame anyone, whether it's on the field, looking back out at management? You have to maybe look inward as well, because you're really looking for character more than anything in these next couple of weeks.
Oh yeah, look at sure. Everyone's giving out around the county about get rid of the county board, underage is terrible, not enough done in schools, we have no hurlers, county team is going terrible. We can blame, but look, you're right, players have to look into their heads, management has to look in as well and pick the right teams, and look, Joe, it's down to the players and management in the end. There's 40 fellas in there in that dressing room today between management and players, and we've got to turn it around, and we will do our bloody well utmost over the next 3 weeks to try and turn it around and give these players a lift and give Offaly supporters a lift, and all we can do is our very, very best, and we will do that.
I think the 2 Johnnies have a line, one of their characters, Noel Furlong. I played senior for 19 years. You're saying he did play senior for Offaly for 19 years,
I think it was 74 to 93,
That's incredible.
Nearly 20 seasons.
And so he's as big a legend as you'll find, and obviously there are a number of legends from the 80s and 90s team, but he's as big a legend as you'll find.
They don't get much bigger.
He's got 2 All-Ireland titles. He played, I think, in 11 Leinster finals off the top of my head, winning 7 of them. Won a National League Division 1 title, which is very rare in Offaly as well. And he's managed the Camogie team. He's previously managed Wexford as well. I mean, this is a stopgap plan. This is come in, do the month. He very much stressed in that interview as well. It wasn't a case of thinking about trying to be in charge for next year. This is a case of go in, get 2 results, and at the very least guarantee that Offaly are in the McDonagh Cup for next year as opposed to the Christie Ring.
Even just that training last Sunday morning, like, which probably wouldn't have happened before, there was actually a decent crowd down there in Brennan's Park. I was actually covering a game, but one of the lads was down there telling me there was a good few people there. The vibe is maybe a bit better, and they do just need people to get behind them. It's easy to support a team when things are going well. It's very difficult to support a team when things are going badly. So they need every bit of support they can get. Joachim is the perfect man in the sense that, like, you won't find anyone more passionate. Like, if you're looking for that bounce, if you're looking just to get a reaction from lads, he's the sort of lad that will get it. I personally think they'll win their 2 games. I don't know how pretty it'll be this weekend, but I do expect them to get a result.
What do you think, Will?
I think, look, crucially, at club level last year with Joachim, he won a county title with Coolderry, which people wouldn't have expected. I think when the championship started off, funnily enough, Coolderry won the teams in the local paper who were tipped to go down, whatever, about winning the championship. And Joachim and quite a few guys who've come into the backroom team, including Martin Bennett, who's going to be working with them on the physical side over the next couple of weeks as well, they were part of a team that got absolutely everything out of an ageing Coolderry team. He has to try and do that. I mean, I think coming in with 2 weeks to prepare for the Antrim game is obviously going to be difficult, but if they can get a result and just a bounce factor, I know it feels a little bit like Solskjaer here at the weekend, and they're to beat Antrim, they can go to Tralee, with the outside chance of qualifying for the final as well, which is not what you would have expected. I would be oftentimes critical of the Offaly County Board, but I think they had to make this change.
So by extension, Kevin Martin is Jose Mourinho, who of course is hugely successful, by the way.
Yeah. Anyway,
moving on from that, so that's Offaly against Antrim this weekend. We have a couple of viewers' comments in, and you can tweet us, send it in Facebook, YouTube, whatever suits you best. Swamp Yankee, I should say, on YouTube says, Munster hurling are boring shootouts. Hate watching it. Leinster any day. Shootout, just that word itself just tells you it's going to be
boring
exciting.
Shootout.
Yeah. Boring shootout. Does such a thing exist? I think we have an image coming up on screen. So Carlow GA on Twitter will surely top the bill this week, Shane, with your paymasters coming to town. Who are my paymasters? Or Dublin GA?
It would seem.
How's that?
Your role as Gobles for Dublin GA is finally been explained.
Just because I know Matty Kenny. And Richie Fitzsimmons on YouTube. It shows how many All-Stars Joe Canning won for other hurlers. When he's not there, they don't know what to do. I mean, a little bit harsh, but I do think that at the moment there's probably a good few factors that we've outlined. Lads coming back, lads away with club, the 2 boys in different countries for Glyn and Joe Cooney. We'll see. Bit harsh, is it? Ooh.
A little bit, but there's obviously there's a Joe Canning shaped hole in the middle of that Galway team.
Big time.
As in a goat-shaped hole. Oof. I'm saying that as a great player, obviously. That's not an insult.
This is the players
want to think I hate Joe Canning. I do not at all.
Smart as well. A couple of years down the line, like he's not 25. He's going to be gone in a couple of years.
He's 31 shortly. I think.
So they're going to have
crazy amount of hurling played as well.
They're going to have to find some way of filling this gap. Otherwise, they're going to struggle. They look like they're struggling now, big time.
Let's talk Clare against Tipperary. Because lads, we know Tipp.
Sheedy's at the wheel.
Tipp are back. It's funny. I was down in Burrislee over the weekend down home, and Brendan Maher comes walking into the shop, and he went off injured last week against Waterford, and I was there just chatting to my aunt Mary, and she collars Brendan as he's going past and said, "How's your injury? How's your injury? Was it your knee?" And he goes, no, I just got a bang in the head or whatever, and I just felt bad sitting down at half time. And she just cornered him and got the whole story of down home. You just cannot escape it. If you're a player, you can't go to the shop without getting collared.
Did you put on the recorder and get maybe 6 pairs?
Put it on, and it's coming up just now. Roll it there. No, I didn't at all.
No, it's true though. Like there's no escape. It's great, and it's a disaster, I'm sure too, if you're hurt badly or anything like that, or there's something wrong with you, you're injured or something like that too.
Yeah, well, Brendan will be fine for the match anyway, as far as I can tell. Did you ever get that playing for Offaly? Because I presume you couldn't walk around the town without people asking you.
The worst is when you get dropped for a match and you have to go and meet people. That's bad now. Yeah, especially if people think you were supposed to be playing, or you even thought yourself you were supposed to be playing.
Have you ever had it like a dummy team was named and you were named to start and then you weren't actually?
No, thank God, because I would not be able to hack that, and I can't stand the idea of a dummy team, particularly for a big game. You're named wing back, you're not playing. Everyone's coming up to you saying, "Oh, congratulations!" Like, I don't know. How do you react to that? Like, exactly. You couldn't be in a good place, like mentally, anyway. I
always feel you sound mentally weak there. I think you'd have more to you than that.
You feel bad for players in those situations, though. I remember Davy Fitz was telling a story at an event I was at last year about the fact fact that he knew Shane O'Donnell was going to start the replay, and he obviously didn't want to tell him. He told him when the team got to Houston, getting ready to go towards the game. But obviously, that you've got a couple of lads who are getting dummied out of that team early in the week. Having to sit down and have that conversation maybe on a Wednesday night and saying, look, I'm going to name the team, but I need you to keep it totally quiet until the weekend because we don't want to put this young lad off ahead of playing a big game. That's a hell of a role to have to take on.
It's tough.
All week that everyone's talking about you starting, you're going to be talked about, you're probably going to be analysed all week that you're due to start and you're going to be up against your man.
We had a club championship game last year, so the 28th season, the new season after the Club All-Ireland, and it was the first championship game I'd started in a couple of years, but I was still wearing number 18. I was absolutely furious. You want that 1 to 15 jersey, don't you?
If I'm mentally weak, that just shows how egotistic
no, it's just
squad number.
Anyway, moving on.
I ain't no squad player.
Clare against Tipp. What do you think is going to be like? We know last year that Tipperary were a width of a post away from being 7 points up late on against Clare, and then they collapsed, and obviously that meant Tipp were gone from the championship. What do you expect here?
Oh, it's going to be seriously interesting, yeah. Clare would just be delighted to have gotten a result down in Waterford. It just means they're kind of on the road. Now they're at a home game. Ennis will make a difference. It's going to be tight. They have a very good record there. They have the forwards probably that can hurt Tipp, and probably have the pace that can hurt them. On the flip side of it, I have question marks over their backs, and particularly their wing and corner men, whether they're going to be able to handle Tipp's movement and the way Tipp have scored in recent weeks. Yeah, there's an awful lot of really interesting things, really interesting questions going to be answered.
What about the Tipp forwards have been on absolute fire the first two games. If you're Jerry O'Connor and Donal Maloney, how are you going to try and cut off the supply going into Bubbles, going into whoever's going to be inside for Tipperary?
Well, I obviously have to try and lock down that Tipperary half-back line, which has been getting good ball out towards the Tipp half-forward line as well. We talked about this last week, that Tipp do have more variety about them. I kind of wonder if last year, because Ennis to me, it always feels like a very tight pitch in terms of, Tipperary's long ball that they may have played before. I kind of would have wondered if maybe Thurles would have suited them better there. But given that Tipperary moved the ball a little bit differently under Sheedy this year, they might be able to actually get more varied ball into their forward line this weekend, because I'm sure Clare are going to say, right, we would have probably defended very deep against Tipperary in years gone by, but this year they're probably going to have to press up a bit in the midfield and on the half forward line, which makes it quite an interesting battle from that regard as well.
Peter Duggan is the groundsman here.
Yeah,
I'd say he does nothing but hit frees and cues all day. A couple of years ago when Tipp met Clare at the All-Ireland quarter-final stage, I think it was the first senior game that was played at Páirc Uí Chaoimh, senior championship game. Shane O'Donnell caused a lot of problems for James Barry in there. Now, this year, the full back line has been protected a bit better, so James has been doing well back there. Do you see that perhaps there are weaknesses across the Tipperary team, and I'm not necessarily just talking any one position, that haven't yet been exploited by Waterford and Cork?
I would think so, yeah. It's still, I think James Barry is hurling well, and he doesn't look leggy like he did the last couple of years. He looks like he's bouncing an awful lot more. But still, Clare they're probably going to have a go at him and have a go at whoever's playing in the corner, probably number 4 as well. Tipp will probably put Cottle Barrett on Shane O'Donnell, I would imagine. But O'Donnell will probably try and pick up Paddy Matter at the same time as well if he's going to be free. But there are a few interesting areas. Alan Flynn will probably start because he'll probably pick up Tony Kelly, I'd say,
he did in the first league game.
Yeah. But everything has been going swimmingly for Tipp. I think Clare will probably try and lock down Noel McGrath and try and have a go at the fullback and cornerback probably, because there are two areas that you would identify as possible weaknesses.
You'd imagine, insofar as Noel McGrath would be the Tipp playmaker from deep now at the moment, as well as Paddy Maher just behind him. He seems to have been kind of a spare man if Tipp are allowed a spare man. Colin Galvin will try and do something similar from the other end, because who else, unless Tony Kelly goes really deep but they want him scoring, who else from Clare can do that?
Yeah, fair point, as well. And just on Rona Matter as well, there seems to be, the way when you have a really good forward, like Tony Kelly would say for Ballier or Clare, it's get the ball to him, basically. Yeah. Rona Matter is almost like that player in the Tipp defence now. They're literally looking up and trying to get the ball to him, because him or Paddy, but Ronan a lot, because his delivery is top class. When he hits the ball into a forward line, invariably a score comes off it. It seems to be a more conscious thing to be looking up and particularly trying to get him on the ball.
Do you think Clare can win an All-Ireland? Especially like Conor McGrath he got surgery on his shoulder. I think he's back playing for Carlow. But just even seeing on, I think it was Airsport the other night, they were playing back the All-Ireland final between Clare and Cork in 2013. And he's just absolute lightning and magic, and those snake hips and all that. Do you think they could win an All-Ireland without him flying?
I personally don't.
I think it's tricky to see him win this one.
Yeah, I'd have worries about centre back as well, to be honest. Yeah. I think Conor Cleary is more of a stopgap than a launch pad centre back. If you know
I think he actually does play intelligent ball. He always looks up and tries to find the right man. But yeah, I take your point all the same.
It's an interesting dynamic as well, the fact that Clare haven't hurled now since weekend 1.
Yeah.
Like, I know we were talking last week about Clare and Limerick. It's amazing that game wasn't on last weekend, but Clare have had a lot of time to prepare, analyse, have a think about Tipperary going into this.
They have, but I think it's the first time that in a few years that Tipp will go in and actually analyse the opposition and try and expose their weaknesses rather than going out and saying, well, we're Tipp, we'll do our own hurling and you try and worry about us. So I think Clare won't have come up against a Tipperary team that's taught how to unpick their locks as well. So I'd be just about going for Tipperary, but I mean, maybe there's a bit of Tipperary bias in me as well, but I think Tipperary...
And you hate Clare, remember?
Apparently I hate Clare as well, yeah. I hate everyone bar Tipperary, and I suppose obviously my paymaster's Dublin as well.
You were on a stag recently where you reckoned a lot of Clare people didn't have the cojones to say to you about this.
They hadn't the stuff to do it, no. No, there was a good few Clare lads from all over the county, and they didn't have the stuff to take me on about Clare and not backing up the All-Irelands. And do you know why? Because they hadn't a leg to stand on.
Just on that as well, like Jamie Shannon's out for the season, Ian Galvin is out as well. I'm not too sure if their squad is as strong as it was last year, to be honest. When push comes to shove and when they're going to need lads to come in, they have lads to come in, said like even Dermot Ryan started the last day, but he's raw enough at that level now too when push comes to shove.
Yeah, it's a lot to ask a lad to come straight in and all of a sudden have an impact for the whole season. Message in from Eastal Cody on Twitter. Weekly Offaly obituary on #Hurling Show. Although Michael Verney and Will O'Callaghan obviously got something slipped in their drinks with their relative positivity. I think you're on the ball there.
Let's come back next Thursday.
So call it Tipperary or Clare.
I fancy Tipp based on the evidence we've seen so far.
I'm not sitting on the fence. I genuinely think that's the draw written all over.
Yeah, I think Tipp are going to hit a road bump at some stage this year, but I think Tipp will win this game. We'll move on to Waterford against Limerick. We'll start off actually with Tommy Walsh. He was speaking with Ger on OTBAM this week.
Do Waterford have a kick left in them? Are we just writing them off and saying it's automatic now that they're going to lose every game? Because they're not really that bad a team, are they?
No, and the only reason, as you know, I tipped them at the start of the year, so they have to have a big push on Sunday or I'm in trouble. But the way I look at it is, are they losing all their games because they're playing really well and things just aren't working out for them? No. So none of them are in form, Ger. You have to compare them to... We'll say Ger Loughnane was speaking about the Galway and Wexford game at the weekend. I was reading him yesterday and he was just pointing out that you know if it was a good game or a bad game by picking out a man of the match. And it was very difficult to pick out the man of the match in the Galway Wexford game. Will you go back and compare that to the Waterford team of this year? Could you maybe point out 2 or 3 players that are in the form of their lives? You couldn't really. I was thinking about it last night, and the only guy that I could really, I suppose, name that is standing up to it is the fullback Conor Prunty. And he's one of the youngest players on the team. He's playing really, really well and against top players in the first 2 games against Clare and versus Tipperary. Like he marked Hurling the last day and he marked a few lads versus Clare as well. And he's playing really well. But other than that, you couldn't pick out a lad that's in form. So would I give him a chance? Of course I would, because they just need lads to get in form. I would hope that maybe like in hurling there's 3 real, in any sport there's three really fundamentals. You have your fitness. I imagine they're all fit at this stage. Then you have the whole spirit and heart. That's another side of things. And then you have tactics, skill, we'll say. Put them into another group. So basically at the moment, if I'm Waterford, I'm forgetting about tactics. I'm forgetting about skill. The only thing they need is heart, spirit. Go back to the Waterford people. They've asked for this home ground for the last 12 months. They've got it. In the first game, there wasn't that much explosion, much fieriness out of them. Let's go back and just show them fieriness. We've seen John Myler picking the Cork team the last day, Ger. He basically said that he wasn't picking his team anymore on skill, he was picking them on work rate. And look at the response that got out of the Cork guys the last day. Like, you couldn't really compare Cork's first performance versus Tipperary versus these the first 2 performances for Waterford. And you'd wonder, Cork after the first day, could they ever come out with another good performance? And suddenly they came out with an absolutely brilliant performance against the All-Ireland champions. So yeah, give them a great chance, but one thing they have to do is come out with some fireness.
Oh, if I was a Waterford fan this week, I would not be too hopeful going into this game, because there's some very damning stats out there about Waterford at the moment. Number one, they haven't won any of their championship games since they got to the All-Ireland final in 2017. So they've gone 7 championship games in a row. Another one is, if you look at their scoring stats, and this is, we'll get it up on the screen here, their average scoring this decade in championship is they score 22 points per game. That's not enough, and the opposition have averaged 24 against them as well, so they average losing games. So even if you break that down per manager this decade, Pádraig Fanning's average scoreline so far from the 2 games are 20 points against the opposition's 30, which is obviously not very good. He'd be looking to turn that around. Derek McGrath's from his 5 seasons was 24 points apiece, and I think a couple of heavy wins over the likes of Offaly and Westmeath kind of muddy the waters there. Michael Ryan was over the team in 2012 and 13. It was 21 points to 22. And Davy Fitz, just looking at his second 2 years, 2011 and 12, 22 points to 24. So that excludes 2008 and 2009 as well. They just don't have the class up front, Mike.
Doesn't look like it, to be honest with you. They've a lot of interchangeable kind of forwards that kind of tend to do the same thing, but they don't have. Show me 3 or 4 lads that are going to hit more than two scores a game. I just can't see it.
A lot of small lads who are nippy and a lot of big lads who aren't.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. Just what you're saying, or what Tommy was saying about Hart or whatever, if Brick is fit, has to start. Yep. Has to start. If he's fit, he has to play.
Well, this is the thing, like maybe Maurice Shanahan as well. Like they came back against Clare to be back within a point, but they never hurled at all.
No,
and they didn't really hurl against Tipp, maybe for 15 minutes or whatever after that.
So they haven't played in their last 3 games, basically.
Yeah, the league final as well.
Performances in their last 3 games. Yeah, they're going to have to pull. They're going to have to pull a good performance out of the back pocket, and we just haven't seen it. So there's no evidence to suggest that we're going to see anything different on Sunday.
What was their last big display? Cork semi-final 2 years ago?
Yeah. Well, to be fair, they were 10 points up on Tipp last year, and obviously the ghost goal that we love talking about as well. And they played pretty well against Cork, albeit they were out of the championship last year as well.
They did, yeah. They were brutal against Limerick last year.
Yeah. Even in the league this year, those 2 wins against Galway that got them to the league final, that wasn't the Galway team that was on the top of the sod as well. So
it was like that game was similar to the Salthill game last Sunday, except Waterford took a few chances.
Yeah.
You know?
Just to try and give a little bit of hope back to Waterford fans here, let's look at the rivalry between Waterford and Limerick in the last 20 years. So they've played 10, Limerick have won 3, Waterford 5, draws 2, and up until last year they'd only 1 win in 18 years, or 17 years I think, over Waterford. So Waterford traditionally, well certainly in recent history, wouldn't actually be fair in Limerick here.
No, they wouldn't be, but
Limerick are a different team now compared to then.
And Waterford's confidence must be in their boots, like it has to be.
But it's not like Pádraig Fanning is the first manager who's had heavy defeats that he has to come back from as Waterford manager. You know, Derek McGrath got to the All-Ireland final, but if you look at the last few years, they lost to Tipp by 18 points this year. Last year, Limerick by 13. 2016, Tipp by 21. 2014, lost by 14 against Cork, and 2011, lost by 21 to Tipperary. They do tend to bounce back as well, to be fair to them.
The only thing I would say about that is, say like the Tipperary Munster final in 16, they had played well coming into that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's hard to recall the last time you played well in a really competitive match as a team. It's bouncing back is one thing, but now it's like they should have bounced back after the league final. They should have bounced back after the Clare game. Now they're hoping to bounce back again. Give me the team that showed more consistent form. Like people are saying Tipp are going too well. I can't buy that argument at all. Would you rather be going too well or hoping for a performance? So like take out the Cork game, and Limerick have been playing really well for the last 18 months.
Yeah. Well, a lot of negative talk down in Waterford as well at the moment. I'd say Pádraig Fanning's under a lot of pressure. Even walking down the street must be difficult as well. But that's something that Derek McGrath and Dan Shanahan faced in the first year as well. So, can they come back from it? Do you see any reason why Waterford could win this game?
Not really, no.
Even in their home patch?
I don't think so, no. Like, even with Manny's injury as well, doesn't help them.
Yeah.
And then you add that, like we spoke about last week, okay, Limerick obviously hurled within themselves quite a bit in the first game against Cork, but they're backs to the wall now. You're taking on a Limerick team who have to get a result based on what's happened on the first weekend.
Yeah.
And I would fully expect that Limerick team will come back and perform much stronger than they did on weekend 1.
Did they get their defeat at the right time against Cork?
I kind of thought that at the time, to be honest with you. Yeah, they've perfect time to bounce back. And without being smart, going to Walsh Park is not easy, obviously, but it's the easiest of the other 3 fixtures that they have left, and to have it first is probably ideal. you would have question marks of how they'll bounce back. This is the first big setback. It'd be interesting to see if maybe their confidence is hit. Maybe they'll bounce back perfectly and take it all in their stride. Maybe they won't. Maybe there'll be question marks. If Waterford are still in it with 20 to go, maybe Limerick will start questioning themselves. I don't think they will though. The group just looks a little bit different. I expect a few changes. I imagine there'll be a few faces, particularly in the forward line.
Well, that was something that we spoke about last week, that Peter Casey in for Seamus Flanagan was the only change from the All-Ireland team last year. So
I didn't necessarily see that as a bad thing at the time because they were all in form, shall we say. But I know you were saying about that people are getting a chance to analyse them, and by not bringing in new faces, you're not seeing anything different. I get that side of the argument
also
too.
the game plan is pretty much the exact same. And I get it, like, it is a very good game plan, and if plan A is working, why necessarily focus too much on a plan B? But it does feel like it's a team that you can try and plan for. You mightn't beat them, they'll beat most teams, but you can at least kind of set up a game plan because you know exactly what they'll try to do.
Yeah, no, I won't disagree with that. I don't think... I
disagreed last week.
You explained it a bit better there. I don't think Waterford, based on what we've seen in the two games, I don't think they have showed enough energy and the work rate required to match a Limerick.
I think on the face of it, this is the ideal game to try and bounce back with.
There's talk that that Darragh Ives might be back, so he could slip in for Philip Mahoney, so that'd be a nice boost. There's also talk of Austin Gleeson slipping back into the back line as well. We'll wait and see. It just hasn't happened for him.
Robin Peter to pay Paul if you move back there.
Well, again, if you put Brick up in the forward line, you might have a ball winner because the ball isn't sticking up front. No. And I just don't understand why he hasn't gotten any games. Like, this is a 4-time All-Star. Obviously, he's not a speedster.
I don't know if it's based on the league final. Like, he shouldn't have been next or near midfield in the league final. Not next or near. Like, play him in the half-hour line where he can put ball down on top of him and get lads moving around him.
Do you know what's a fair stat?
It's probably one that you came up with, I would say.
Obviously it is. So you're not providing that in there, are you? Dermot Burns scored 20 points during the league, the wing back for Limerick.
Yeah.
20 points.
He got the first free against Cork, and I'd say hardly hit another ball for the rest of the game.
Yeah, but it's nice to have that because they've scoring threats all across the field as well. Just to think that your wing back could...
Just on that, like, if Waterford do try and sit deep and clog up their full forward line, Limerick would be happy enough to have shooters in the likes of Hannon, Keane Lynch, Darragh O'Donovan and Dermot Burns. They'd probably hope to pick up 5 or 6 points from long range scores.
Well, haven't been beaten so emphatically in the league final. Waterford do know from very recent outing exactly what they're going to face. So do you see them doing much different? Because I felt that when Limerick were trying to work the ball out and Limerick were dropping 12 into their own half and they tried to work the ball up the field, Waterford were leaving too many guys back around the 65 where Limerick could work the ball out to the 65 and pop it over their heads into Gallen and Mulcahy as well. So will Waterford start to push up further, or will they drop those guys even deeper? Because you know Gallen likes to come out from the square out to around the 21, wheel around and throw it over the bar. And
I think if they go deeper, they're in big trouble. Limerick will just run the ball all day. Like we saw in the league final, Waterford had very static midfield and Limerick were happy enough to just pass around them.
When Waterford don't have the ball, are they as well off just bringing everyone out to more or less the 45 attackers, that is, and you know, just absolutely clogging it up?
They have to clog things up, I think,
and just focus on scoring from distance themselves.
Be interesting to see if Limerick changed tack a bit if Waterford did push up.
Yeah.
If they just try and, I don't know, maybe play a bit more direct, particularly down the channels, just to try and I suppose they're going to be more exposed if they push up, so they might try to just play a quicker ball maybe and just kind of leave it if it's one-on-one at the back.
Yeah, I wonder as well for Limerick against Cork, they didn't look 100% themselves. They'd only played club championship games, like that's all any of them had played, maybe the odd challenge, whereas other counties had played a game. Like Cork had played a game against Tipperary.
Yeah, it's not an easy way to start. I mean, obviously your break is coming at different periods in the Munster Championship this year. I would have thought you would want to go out and hurl weekend one because it was a long wait since the league final. Get a game out and played. They're obviously going to be maybe a bit off the pace by comparison, and then we maybe didn't see the kind of showing the Cork were going to put in as well when they went up there. I think most people would have went if this is the Pool's home win. And then Limerick just underperformed.
So let's call it. I'm going to go with Limerick.
Yeah, you have to go for Limerick, I think.
Go at Limerick by 5 or 6 more, I think, I think I'd be surprised if they don't win with a bit to spare.
Let's move on then to the final game of the weekend, which is Carlow against Dublin. Carlow very much fighting for survival. Dublin want to stay in the hunt for either progressing into the All-Ireland series or to the Leinster final as well. But I was looking at and I'll start for you here, Michael, looking at Dublin's struggle since they last won the Leinster title in 2013. And they've played 13 games, won just 3, lost 8 and drawn just 2. So they've had a fairly horrific record since then. And not only that, 8 of those losses, well, of the 8 losses, 4 have been by 12 points or more. So they've taken some serious tankings in that time.
They have, yeah. And they've, what was it? Up until the last day, no, the last day they drew, they had lost a lead. They lost a lead 5 or 6 times in a row or something like that, or been leading at the hour mark in championship games. So that's a worry. Like, but this weekend, it's funny. Like, this weekend, everyone is expecting Dublin to win. This is literally the game that Carlow have target. This is the game that they have target, and they've pretty much openly said that. Colin Bonner has said it. Marty Kavanagh has said it as well. This is the game that they're at home, whereas they're travelling to play Wexford. This is the game where they think they can actually pick up something. So, like, Carlow will be happy with the second half performance because Kilkenny, obviously not the first half performance, but they've played 3 good halves.
They were absolutely blown out of it by Kilkenny from start to finish. It was 3-19-3 at the break, and Kilkenny had 13 of their 15 wides in that time. They were blown out of it.
No, they weren't blown out from start to finish. They beat Kilkenny in the second half of that game. But they weren't blown out from start to finish. They've played well. They've played well for 3 halves of hurling, which is probably more.
When the game was a game, they weren't in the game.
Yeah, no, I won't disagree with that. The Galway game was a game the whole way. I will say that. It'll be interesting if you can just keep it tight. If they just ensure that they don't concede any goals. Like, I think Dublin got 3 goals in the league game earlier on this year. It was 3-15-18. Apart from that, there was nothing really in it. So it'll be interesting. I think it could be tighter than people expect.
It'd be interesting if pressure comes on Dublin, because for Dublin they can't afford to drop points here. It's as simple as that after the draw against Wexford.
Do they deal well with pressure? Do they deal well with pressure?
Not necessarily. Obviously, he's the paymaster.
An expectation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you say, paymaster?
Well, like, if I was Dublin, I'd be looking at the last performance and I'd be thinking, we should have won that game. We didn't get enough out of Danny Sutcliffe. We didn't get a whole pile out of Liam Rush. We're not really creating too many goal chances. I know Paul Ryan has missed one in probably each of the last 2 games as well that he'd expect to get themselves. Their only 2 goals are from place balls from Sean Moran as well. So I just don't think that they're getting the chances. Donald Burke, I believe, has gone away to America, or heading to America for the summer, so he's not going to be available. Mark Schutte hasn't been involved either. Keane O'Callaghan and Darragh O'Connell missed the last day as well. So considering the lads they're down, to draw with Wexford on the face of it isn't actually that bad. But I think they'll step it up here. I think their intensity will blow Carlow out of the water in the first 20 minutes. I don't think they'll win it by a massive scoreline, but I can see Dublin winning this. And the other thing is, if I was a Carlow player, I'd be thinking, how many of the guys on this Carlow team and how many of the guys on the Dublin team played in that under-21 game in 2013? Remember when Carlow beat Dublin? That Dublin team contained Sean Moran, so you're talking about your centre-back, Chris Crummy, your captain, Danny Sutcliffe was on it, so he's the leader of the attack, Eamon Dillon, who's a regular starter, and actually Cormac Costello, Kieran Kilkenny and Conor McHugh were playing as well, who were all part of the All-Ireland football winning panel. So there's a lot of those Carlow guys there. So there's Brian Tracy, Paul Doyle, Gary Bennett, Dermot Byrne, Paul Cody, John M. Nolan, Marty Kavanagh and the other John Nolan as well. So there's plenty of those guys they can say, look, we've beaten these exact guys before.
Yeah, and look, to be fair, I think there's a big performance in Carlow in this one as well. I think, as Mick said, this is when the fixture list came out, they would have seen this as the winnable game for them. I mean, realistically, Kilkenny at home was going to be a nice day out. There's going to be the neighbours coming across to play, but realistically, you're probably not going to win. It was going to be difficult to try and win in Salthill. They would have looked at probably Dublin as best chance to get points and maybe Wexford as second best chance to get points in this. They need a win if they're going to stay in the Leinster Championship for next year. Carlow have delivered big performances in some big games this time round. I mean, remember, pains me to say it, they went to Tullamore and won a game in a relegation playoff after being beaten the week before and had let in quite a few goals that day as well. They turned it round, difficult circumstances, hurling the man short for nearly an hour in that game as well, and Carlow eked out a result. I think Carlow could actually even get 2 points this weekend. I think Dublin should be winning, but I wouldn't be surprised if Carlow get a result. They certainly won't, but I don't know. I think there's a big performance in Carlow this weekend.
Dublin don't have the same killer instinct that a Kilkenny has, and if Carlow can keep them to a goal or less, they have a great shout. But I still think Dublin will win. But a goal or less, and they have a brilliant shout.
So, like, if Dublin lose, right, there's a good chance they'll go into a playoff as well, finish bottom of Leinster. If they win, then they set up a win and you're possibly into a Leinster final.
That's massive.
So that just shows you how crazy Leinster is looking at the moment. We'll finish off with a couple of tweets, lads. Are you all going for Dublin, so? No, you're going for Carlow. You are going for Carlow.
I kind of have a feeling that Carlow might pull off a shock.
Yeah, Dublin for me.
Dublin, but Carlow in the +8 handicap, so I think it'll be 8 or less.
Okay. We'll finish off with a couple of tweets here. One is from the Dublin forward, Eamon Trollier Dillon as well.
Always fun to follow him on Twitter.
Yeah, he doesn't mind calling it out. Ma gave it out to me because I voted for your man it's Ben Gilroy, because I hadn't got a clue about anyone else. I just noted he had a hurl, so I gave him a vote. So that was from Ben Gilroy.
Yeah, but he called it a hurl stick, so no vote.
Look, it's a hurley, lads. It's a hurley all day. And the final tweet is from Buff Egan as well. And I'm going to let you explain this one, because you're both wrestling and aficionados, really, aren't you?
Yeah, Rocky Mack is a wrestler. He's currently based in England, but he's from Abbeyside, as far as I know. This is as cool a hurl as you'll ever see. As Buff said here, is that Michael Collins and the boss of your hurley, he said. So that's 50-50 hurl or hurley.
If Buff says that, that'll do.
And it is. It's Rocky Mack up on top of the boss, and it is a picture of Michael Collins. A man could do untold, one of the Buff's great saying, one of those at the Royal Rumble, and you can believe that. He's managed to get a lot of different phrases into one tweet there.
He's done well as ever. All right, lads, that's it for the Hurling Show. My thanks to Michael Verney of the Irish Independent, and my thanks to William O'Callaghan as well of Off the Ball. We'll be back at noon next Thursday. There'll be plenty more hurling on Off the Ball in the coming days, and live from the matches as well on Off the Ball.